Warning about warning lights when your car goes over 100,000 miles by Rick Emmett. My wife loves her 2007 Toyota RAV4. She must. She's had it for 16 years now and has never brought up the subject of trading it in for a new car. It has over 100,000 miles on it and is still dependable and in really good shape. But here's the rub. For the first 100,000 miles, when the onboard computer sensed trouble, an array of warning lights would illuminate. Recently, though, after she had driven home from school where she helps young students improve their reading skills, she asked me to look at the dash warning light she had not seen before. Well, I went out to her car and was not prepared to see a warning light I had never seen before. I did not recognize the symbol and quickly consulted the car's handbook. It stated, "Take to dealer right away and bring your big wallet." Oh boy. Well, with my pulse quickening, I drove the car to the auto parts store that advertised interpreting the warning lights. While he hooked up the car computer reader, I was hoping for the replace the battery interpretation. I watched as he studied the readout, saw him shake his head. The alternator is shot, he exclaimed. I would not recommend you driving around much until you get it fixed, and I mean right away. Well, the dealership was about 10 miles away, and there's a Pep Boys just 2 blocks from the auto parts store. I went to Pep Boys and showed them the light. You should have seen the big smile that developed on his face as he looked up the price for an alternator and the labor costs. His expression turned real serious, and he said it would cost about $450 for parts and labor, but they could not get it this late in the afternoon. He assured me his crew would be at it first thing in the morning, and I could drop it off the next morning. I decided to leave the car there overnight and have my wife pick me up. My wife would take my car to work the next day, and we would get it fixed after she came home from work. The next morning, my wife left for work as normal, and I sat in the kitchen table working on the crossword puzzle, and the phone rang. It was Pep Boys. The manager told me they had started work on my car and that I should consider changing the serpentine belt while having the alternator replaced. The belt was in sad shape, and it would cost twice as much to have it done at a later date, though that date was not far off. I asked him to hold for a second, downed a whole cup of hot black coffee in one gulp, and said in a meek voice, "Okay, do it." My wife returned from school, but the car was not ready. Pep Boys has an app that shows progress of your repair, just like Domino's Pizza, and it indicated the car was still in the oven. Still being worked on. Finally, it indicated it was ready for pickup, and we headed to the shop. The car was indeed ready, but as I was handing the manager my American Express Platinum card, he looked at me and said, "I'm afraid we found another potential problem." To ensure we knew the gravity of the problem, he called the mechanic that had worked on the car. He proceeded to produce his cell phone and showed us a picture of the underside of the engine area. "You see that wet stuff there?" he said, pointing to an indescribable area of the engine. "Looks like the water pump's getting ready to go. You better keep an eye on it. If you see fluid in the driveway or a sudden sharp rise in the engine temp, get it to the shop right away." I looked over to the manager and asked what kind of damage this would replacing the water pump run. A big smile started to well up on his face, but quickly changed to that of a friendly undertaker. He had already checked the cost computer and said, "You'll need to bring your American Express Black card." Oh man. Happy, happy, joy, joy. In the meantime, I recommend that you take the car to a car wash and have the undercarriage washed. Then watch for any leaks in the driveway. I thanked him and left the shop in a daze. We had just sent the paperwork for ending a lease on the car I was driving and buying it from the dealer. Now this. The next day my wife had off, so I took the car to the car wash to get the undercarriage washed as well as the rest of the car. Might as well get that full service, vacuum, clean all the windows, inside out, hot wax. Upon entry to the car wash was a big sign that stated that while they're happy to see me, due to no one wanting to work for tips and streamlining the operation, only the computer-operated car wash would touch the car. Damn. Disappointed but glad at least the outside of the car was cleaned, I drove the car home and parked it in the driveway because my car was in the garage where my wife's car is normally parked. This proved to be critical. Later in the morning, it was time to put my wife's car back in the garage. I got into my car, she into hers. The switch went without hitch. That is, until I spotted a telltale puddle of greenish fluid where my wife's car had been parked. What did the guy say at the shop? Tell me. You better keep an eye on it. If you see fluid on the driveway or a sudden sharp rise in the engine temp, get it to the shop right away. Oh man, this was not what I wanted to see, but there it was, a big puddle of dollar signs on the driveway. No time to waste. It's Wednesday afternoon around 2 p.m. I yelled at my wife to drop everything. We have to take the car back to Pep Boys right now. I figured if we got there right away, they could probably get it fixed by 7 p.m. when they closed. Then my wife could drive her car to work the next day, and all would be right with the world except for my credit card account. We were at Pep Boys in less than 5 minutes. The same manager was on duty. He looked a little perplexed when we came into the store. Is there something wrong? He asked. It's the water pump. It's leaking on my driveway. Can you get it fixed this afternoon? All my hope faded when he started shaking his head no and explaining that they were busy. They would need to first test the fluid and diagnose the problem, then order the necessary parts. So why don't you bring it in first thing in the morning, and they'll be able to get right to it. Not what I wanted to hear, but what could I do? Just drop off in the morning. They open at 8. My wife leaves for work at 8. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to drive to the shop, fill out the paperwork, and drive back to the house before she can really leave for work. She will be late. No, we have to leave the car at the shop overnight. I filled out the paperwork, said goodbye to the car for the second time that week, and drove home. The next morning, my wife left for work in my car, and I pulled up the Pep Boys pizza making app that will show the progress of my repair. From 8 a.m. till around 10, the only item that was blue was the appointment confirmed. I get a call around 10 a.m. telling me the repair will cost around $1,000 should they proceed. I swallowed hard and said yes. Then around 2:30 p.m. the technician assigned turned blue. My wife got home from teaching around 3:30 p.m. and when I checked, the vehicle in progress was an assuring blue. Then at 4, 5, 5:30, 5:45, and 6, no change. At 6:10 p.m. we got a call from the shop. We're running a little late on your vehicle. Could we keep it overnight and get to you in the morning? I let the manager know that this did not meet my expectations, and I was sorely disappointed. In addressing my disappointment with the current situation, I was successful in not reverting to the language that I might have used during my Army days. There was nothing I could do on my end to expedite the repair, so I acknowledged the delay and hung up. Then I asked my wife if we still had that case of airplane glue. Just kidding. At 6:50 we got a call from the shop. Our car was ready. Oh my! We hurried over to the shop knowing that they closed at 7 p.m. When we arrived, the car was being pulled out of the work bay, and I entered the shop to settle the bill. The mechanic came to the register and showed me the water pump and where it was failing. It was literally only a few miles from catastrophic failure and the need for a tow to some shop where it failed. We thanked them for finishing up the repair and headed back home. I checked the app one more time and everything had indeed turned blue, to include me. So if your car goes over that magical 100,000 mile mark, be on the lookout for the special dashboard warning lights. The end.